Hundreds of supporters of all faiths turned out for a prayer vigil held this week at Butler University in Indianapolis for ISIL captive and Indiana native Abdul Rahman Qassig, formerly known as Peter Qassig. The terrorist organization known as ISIL, or the Islamic State, beheaded 44-year-old British aid worker Ellen Henning last week and then announced that Qassig will be killed next unless the United States stops bombing ISIL targets. Governor Mike Pence and Indiana Senator Dan Coats issued statements urging Hoosiers to keep Qassig and his family in their thoughts and prayers. The 26-year-old was working in Syria on behalf of an aid organization he founded to help refugees fleeing Syria's civil war. Qassig's mother, Paula, reached out to ISIL this week via social media saying, quote, "I'm trying to get in touch with the Islamic State about my son's fate. I'm an old woman and Abdul Rahman is my only child. My husband and I are on our own with no help from the government. We would like to talk to you. How can we reach you?" End quote. Qassig has been held captive since October 2014. A new layer of security has been added for passengers entering the United States at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. This week, the White House, the Centers for Disease Control, and the Department of Homeland Security announced sweeping procedural changes to help identify and quarantine any travelers carrying the Ebola virus. O'Hare is one of 5 U.S. airports that receive almost 94% of travelers arriving from the Ebola-affected nations of Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. The enhanced entry screening duties at the 5 airports will include observation and questioning of travelers in a secure area, and security personnel will be checking new arrivals for any indication of fever. In a conference call with state and local officials this week, President Barack Obama addressed governors, mayors, and county officials, pledging federal assistance should anyone in their state be diagnosed with Ebola. The move comes after the first Ebola death in the United States, 42-year-old Liberian Thomas Duncan in Dallas, Texas. Karen Pride, Media Relations Director for the Chicago Department of Aviation, says that, quote, "The Chicago Department of Aviation and the Chicago Department of Public Health will continue to coordinate with the federal government to take all proper precautions for residents and visitors," end quote. Indiana Governor Mike Pence says the state is ready to deal with any outbreak of the Ebola virus. The governor and the Indiana Department of Health hosted a webcast this week for Indiana healthcare providers. Pence pledged to keep those healthcare providers up to date on any new Ebola information and guidance. The governor says that the Indiana State Department of Health has been working closely with the CDC and other states to track and prepare for the Ebola virus. Lawyers for Jamal Jones, Lisa Mahoney, and 2 minor children were in federal court this week filing a lawsuit against the city of Hammond. The suit alleges that the civil rights of the family were violated when they were stopped by Hammond police on September 24th. Police pulled the car over because the occupants were not wearing seat belts. Passenger Jamal Jones could not provide ID and refused to roll down his window. When he made a sudden move to reach between the seats, police broke the window and tased Jones before taking him into custody. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has awarded a construction contract of more than $3 million to the city of Portage. Congressman Pete Visclosky announced the contract this week for ecosystem restoration work on 80 acres on the city of Portage lakefront area. Calling the award a significant milestone in the continued efforts to recapture the Lake Michigan shoreline, Congressman Visclosky credited the announcement to the public-private partnership of the city of Portage, the Portage Park Foundation, the Army Corps of Engineers, and U.S. Steel. Portage Mayor James Snyder says this is another big step forward for the city.
Portage just got to announce another 500 jobs, and one of the things that attracts people so much to Portage is the lakefront and the fact that we can show them that their workforce has a lot of other things to do. Also, the people coming to this park has been immense. This is one of the most visited national parks now in the Midwest.
The restoration project will include controlled burns and invasive plant eradication, as well as some dune rebuilding and wetland terracing. The city of Whiting wants to celebrate the ones who help us celebrate. The city has signed a partnership with Raymond Entertainment Group to make the proposed National Mascot Hall of Fame a reality. The glass, steel, and concrete building, celebrating mascots' role in American sports, will serve as a gateway to Whiting's recently completed lakefront revitalization project.
Fame in Whiting is going to be an absolute blessing for us. You know, our goal is to turn Whiting into a one-day destination of sorts, and you need attractions like this. So, you know, world-class entertainment venues to do that. And once they're here and once they're operating, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. We hope to draw an amazing amount of people to support our businesses downtown.
The planned 25,000 square foot facility would function as an entertainment venue, museum, and family fun zone. Hundreds of Hoosiers will be participating in this weekend's Chicago Marathon, and the South Shore is encouraging runners, walkers, and spectators to leave their cars in Northwest Indiana and take the train. John Parsons, project manager for the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, or NICD, says that expensive Chicago parking on unexpected race detours can be a nightmare. Sunday morning, NICD is adding an early morning train to the regular weekend schedule in order to accommodate racegoers, and an extra afternoon train to get Hoosiers back to the region. For more information, you can go to www.nicd.com. A new decision handed down by the High Court has made marriage a reality for some Indiana couples. Hillary Powell shows how a ruling with national implications is shaking things up locally.
Changes at the Indiana State Department of Health have been made in response to a Supreme Court ruling. Wednesday, the Department of Health debuted a revamped marriage license, allowing for 2 men and 2 women on the form. When the U.S. Supreme Court said this week it would not take on same-sex cases from Indiana and 4 other states, the court made it possible for same-sex couples to once again be married in Indiana. It is a busy work week for Hoosier court clerks. At the Lake County Courthouse, the marriage department is working harder for their customers. This week, some of them are new.
This morning we had quite a few calls. I don't believe anyone counted the number. However, the division manager of the marriage department said that there was quite a bit of activity with regard to the case. It was not only people calling to find out whether or not they could get married if they were of the same sex, but it was also the press calling and other interested parties.
That's because Indiana same-sex couples can again be married in the state. This week, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear same-sex marriage cases from Indiana and 4 other states, clearing the way for same-sex couples to both apply for a license and have a marriage ceremony performed.
So everything is now legal.
Though the ban on issuing marriage licenses was lifted Monday, Herniak says a mandate Tuesday from the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals made it the law for all marriages to move forward in Indiana.
The clerk can start performing the marriages, the judges can perform them, the ministers, the clergy, so on and so forth.
Across the state, enthusiastic reactions came from supporters. In Indiana, once and for all, love is love, says the American Civil Liberties Union of Indiana. Love is the law in Indiana, reads the site for the group Hoosiers Unite for Marriage. In March, Lambda Legal filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of 5 couples, including 3 from Northwest Indiana, who couldn't get married because of the state's ban on same-sex marriage. Lambda Legal Director John Davidson says he isn't aware if any of his clients have wed yet because he's been so busy celebrating what he calls remarkable progress.
A little over 10 years ago, there was nowhere in the United States where same-sex couples can get married. And we have 27 states and the District of Columbia where same-sex couples can currently get married everywhere in the state.
Davidson says now about 2/3 of Americans, including Hoosiers, live in states where same-sex couples can marry. He says he hasn't heard of any Indiana counties refusing to comply.
The clerk is ordered to perform marriages, and in the event that the clerk does not comply with that order, they are in violation of federal law.
I think they need to understand that they're no more entitled to refuse a marriage license to a same-sex couple than to any other couple who they might have some problems with them getting married with.
Jim Brillmeyer, founder of the group Out and About Northwest Indiana, says this week is a win for equality.
They're joyous because they can finally be who they want to be and live their lives who they want to live their life. Marry now.
We had one couple that came in earlier this morning, and when we were on solid ground with that, we went ahead and prepared, had them prepare the application. A good week, for sure.
It's pretty incredible that same-sex couples cannot constitutionally be denied the freedom to marry.
Another legislative effort that may impact residents here in Northwest Indiana is the move to extend the South Shore rail line. Steve Walsh finds out why one local official wants to donate local tax money to the project.
Since last year, Congressman Peter Visclosky has been on the campaign trail rallying for funds to expand the South Shore to Dyer. 16 communities in Lake County have pledged a portion of their new income tax money over the next 30 years to help make that happen, though not everyone has signed on. To find out where we are, we have Congressman Visclosky. Welcome.
Steve, thank you very much. Good to be on the program.
So 16 communities have signed on to this. The county signed on to this, but Cedar Lake is saying no. Griffith is saying no. And then most notably, Hammond has said that they're not interested, at least right now. In fact, Mayor McDermott is calling for a referendum at this point on the whole project. Does missing the $900,000 that would come from Hammond, does that really put a real kink in this project?
Steve, at this point, the project is going to proceed. And from my perspective, because Hammond originally also did not agree for the 30-year bond issue commitment, that the value of the project is going to be seen. And I think everyone will come along. The fact is, for the actual commitment for a 30-year bond issue, we now have 10 of the 20 communities, including Lake County, who have reaffirmed their support. And I believe that will, again, continue to approach the 15 or 16 community level. I think that will show a consensus that will be very helpful in the spring with the Indiana General Assembly.
Well, speaking of that consensus, what about Mayor McDermott's notion that we need a referendum? We need to show this money is going to be committed for 30 years, local tax money. We need a referendum before we go forward to show that the people in this county want this project.
Steve, referendums for schools, for example, are authorized under state law for new taxes. I emphasize that there is no new tax money involved. There's an existing local source of revenue that has been collected for over the last year. This is a decision on how to allocate those monies by public officials. And this has been a project that's been worked on for 27 years. We had 12 communities in Lake County, including Lake County and Porter County, commit funds to a study in 2004. Would point out that there's legislation in the General Assembly that created the Regional Development Authority in 2005 that expressly said one of the 4 charges is to expand South Shore service.
Though we still don't know some basic things like where the stations are going to go, and there's an environmental impact study that's just really getting underway. There'll be a public hearing, I think, right at the end of this month. Do we really know enough about this project to commit that kind of money now, as opposed to after we see the results of that study?
First of all, if we did not have a commitment of the monies, we couldn't proceed with the study. And the point of the study is to begin to make sure you have additional public input in this as far as where are stations going to be located and how are we going to maximize the economic development through transit-oriented development in Northwest Indiana. That study has to be completed for that federal application to be filed. That application also cannot be filed absent a commitment as far as non-federal funding. So it is key to this process.
Okay, so that's kind of where we are in the process. But what about Hammond is saying no. East Chicago, I don't think they've made a commitment at this point. I don't think it's any coincidence. They also already have South Shore stations there. What's the argument you make to communities that already have stations? How are they benefiting? Or, for that matter, communities that aren't along the line, places like Hobart in the far south, in the southern parts of the county.
The point I make is, as we proceed with the legislature in the spring, what we're asking for is their cooperation to give us some additional tools to invest in the existing line and the expansion to grow the economy. Those tools are not just there for the expansion, but also will be very helpful to the communities along the existing line.
In the meantime, Congressman Peter Visclosky, thank you so much for coming on.
Great. Thank you very much, Dave.
Hospitals are smoke-free zones, so when smokers are admitted to the hospital for any reason, they must leave their cigarettes behind. This can be a good opportunity to try to quit. A new study examined whether offering hospitalized smokers medication and counseling would help them stay smoke-free after leaving. Reporter Catherine Dolph has more in this week's JAMA Report.
John Lindy began smoking at age 13.
I had tried quitting several times, and I'd make it as long as a week or 2 weeks and then finally just cave in.
During a recent hospital stay, John knew he wouldn't be able to smoke. He was offered medication like these nicotine patches. He was also offered counseling to help him try and make a permanent break with cigarettes.
The girl that came in and talked to me was really, really cool, supportive.
We know that medication works and that counseling works, but they both together work much better than either one alone.
Dr. Nancy Rigotti from Massachusetts General Hospital and co-authors designed a simple system to help smokers stay smoke-free after leaving the hospital. 397 patients were divided into 2 groups. One group just received recommendations about how to quit. The other group was provided with various medications, counseling while in the hospital.
How has it been for you since you've been admitted and not smoking?
Automated phone calls checking their progress.
We hope you're feeling better since you left the hospital. Have you smoked a cigarette, even a puff, in the last 7 days?
And access to additional counseling for 3 months after leaving the hospital.
We were able to increase the quit rates 6 months after discharge by over 70% by providing this simple system of care.
The study appears in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association.
We looked to see whether the treatment worked as well in different kinds of smokers, black, white, men, women, rich, poor, and so forth. And we found that it worked well in all kinds of smokers.
John has been smoke-free for more than a year now.
The benefit in the long run to just saying no to it is far greater than the benefit of having a cigarette.
It's important that hospitals do their part to help smokers stay healthy by staying smoke-free after they leave the hospital.
Catherine Dolph, The JAMA Report.
Autumn in Northwest Indiana would not be complete without a visit to the Northwest Indiana Symphony Orchestra. John Kane talks to conductor Kirk Musprat on this week's Eye on the Arts.
Hi, joining me for this edition of Eye on the Arts is Kirk Musprat, music director of the Northwest Indiana Symphony Orchestra. And Kirk, I'm so excited about our next concert.
It's fantastic.
Well, tell me about it.
On the second half of the program, we're going to do one of the most requested and most popular pieces in the classical repertoire, The Great Planets. And it's an enormous orchestra, 2 sets of timpani, 6 French horns, contrabassoon, euphonium. Just, it's going to really rock in Bethel.
But it's not just music.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
No, oh, no. You know, from looking at what they've done at Ravinia, at Grant Park, at the Boston Symphony in San Francisco, there's this wonderful program coming out of the Adler Planetarium that has images from the Hubble and from the space shuttle. And so while we're playing the planets, we will have those visual videos up on the screens that are synced up with the music, and they're really astonishing.
And Dr. Salgado from the Adler Planetarium
Yes,
in
will
Chicago.
also come. And then I'll say a few words maybe about the music, like before Mars, but then he will say things about Mars just before we play Mars.
I see.
Same for Mercury, same for Jupiter, etc.
So there's a lot of entertainment going on along with
it's
the
very
listening.
entertaining and very visual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is also, in addition to this being a classical concert at Bethel Church on Friday the 24th, it's also our education concerts earlier that week.
Yes.
For young people.
Yes.
And I understand there's like a record number of kids coming this year.
6,000 kids are
That's
coming.
just phenomenal.
It's amazing, and we're so happy. It's about almost 20% more than last year. And it's great because we can combine science and music. They'll learn all about the instrument families, but they'll also learn about the planets too. So it's, you know, it's combining 2 areas.
So the teachers are really excited.
Very
about
excited,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
6,000 kids.
And funding, that we have funding to help pay for, some people are on scholarships to come, so that's great.
Chicago, NEA, many sponsors for that concert.
And did you want to touch on Dialogue of the Carmelites as well?
Oh, I do, yes.
We just have a minute.
On the first half of the program, we're doing 3 pieces, and the last piece is we're doing the finale of Dialogue of the Carmelites, which, as we know, is the story of those 14 nuns during the Reign of Terror, the French Revolution, that gave up their lives because they would not give up their order. And it's a very powerful piece of music.
And this is on the grown-up concert, not on
this is on the grown-up
kiddie
concert.
No,
okay. Just planets and fun for the kids.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kirk.
Thanks,
for
John.
being here to tell us about it. And thank you for watching. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Eye on the Arts. Eye on the Arts is made possible in part by South Shore Arts, the Indiana Arts Commission, and the National Endowment for the Arts, a federal agency.
Okay, hopefully we're still a long way off from the snow and the ice, but there's a group out in Bolingbrook, Illinois that celebrates the ice all year round. We hooked up with Windy City Curling on this week's Jump in the Lake.
Today we traveled a bit west of the lake. We're in Bolingbrook, Illinois at the Rocket Ice Rink, and we are learning about the sport of curling on this week's Jump in the Lake.
The house is a 12-foot concentric circle.
So it
each
looks like
line
a
there
bullseye. But
looks like a bullseye.
but the rings don't symbolize different score.
Nope. Everything that's in the house counts as 1 point. It can just be touching the outside ring by 1/8 of an inch. Or it could be dead center of the bullseye right on what's called the button. It could be right on the button, and that's still 1 point. The whole goal is to get your stones closer than your opponent's stones. So kind of like bocce ball. However many you have closer than your opponent's closest one is how many points you would score.
I think what people don't realize is that when you curl, it's not smooth ice.
We do something called pebbling. So that's what allows the rocks to curl. We're sprinkling hot water onto the ice. That will give it variation so the rocks will be able to grip and curl over time. So as you throw it down, the rocks will be turning and rotating one direction or the other, and that's what causes the curl. So that pebbling is crucial. So as the rock's traveling down and rotating, the goal is to stay in front of it, follow the path down, and sweep in front. Reducing the friction by melting the ice allows it to go farther, and it also melts that pebble that we were just talking about, so it prevents it from curling.
So you just don't want to touch the stone.
You can't touch the stone.
Okay, so that would be bad.
Yeah, that would be bad.
It's not even gonna make it. Is it hard? Come on, keep going, 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 keep going. Oh, rats! I didn't fall on my butt, so.
You stayed upright.
Yeah! Oh my gosh!
One of the most important jobs about the sweeping, and that's why I kind of think it's the most important thing in curling, is you got to be able to communicate down to your skip, the guy standing in the house, where you think it's going to end up.
Greg will give his own unique way of letting me know what exactly he wants. And to let me know where he wants the stone to stop, he'll tap the resting spot. When I see him tap there, I go, okay, I know that's where the stone should end.
We've had so much fun tonight. We've been serving up some stones, we've been sweeping our little hearts out, and we've been falling all over the ice. But we've had a great time with Windy City Curling, and we want to thank you so much for joining us on this week's Jump in the Lake.
I have to thank Eric Reitel, one of our interns here at Lakeshore. He is an instructor for Windy City Curling, and he kind of helped us set up and was so helpful. I would have fallen a lot more if it hadn't been for Eric, I'm sure.
But it's a dynamic sport. You really have to use your core to make sure you're grounded.
There are a lot of different moves that you're just not used to making in everyday life, and also you're on the ice, so you're constantly trying to keep from falling, and that gives you a little bit more of a workout than you think you're going to have. But it was a great deal of fun. We appreciate the suggestion for that story, and we're always looking for suggestions for stories. You can contact us anytime.
That's right. We're online at tvfeedback@lakeshorepublicmedia.org. We'd love to hear from you. You can send us your thoughts, concerns, or questions, or ideas, kind of like Eric had. And you can also reach us at Facebook at Lakeshore Report and also on Twitter at Lakeshore Report as well. We're always there waiting and listening.
Yeah, and if you'd like any information on any more of our stories, you can go to our website, lakeshorepublicmedia.org. We want to thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next time on Lakeshore Report.